working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma, and to all our viewers. Yes, I am Crystal Mapa, live from Thailand, and we're bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. At least 7 people were killed after a 6-magnitude quake struck off the coast of Indonesia's main Java island on Saturday as the country reels from a cyclone disaster in another part of the archipelago.
Faced with daily internet shutdowns and information suppression by the junta, young activists in coup-hit Myanmar are fighting back with a revolutionary printed newsletter called Molotov, which they secretly distribute across communities.
A prominent Singapore minister stepped aside on Thursday as the successor of the premier in a shock move that upended the tightly controlled country's carefully planned power transfer.
And Philippine National Police Chief General Debold Sinas on Sunday ordered the cops to continue to man checkpoints in the NCR Plus, Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, and 3 other areas under the less restrictive modified enhanced community quarantine starting today until April 30.
First, we go to Indonesia, where at least 7 people were killed after a 6-magnitude quake struck off the coast of the main island in Java Island Saturday as the country reels from a cyclone disaster in another part of the archipelago. Let's take a look.
Nggak tahu, kaget sekali. Rumah tiba-tiba bergetar. Saya duduk aja kayak lonjak-lonjak gitu. Terus saya langsung lari, tapi saya ingat ada kakak saya di sini. Lalu budenya anak-anak. Lalu saya gandeng, evakuasi ke depan, keluar supaya takutnya nanti kalau ada gempa lagi gitu.
Ada pasien, jadi mungkin dampaknya ya pasti panik ya, karena kan gempanya kayak menakutkan gempanya, ada standar infus jatuh, alat-alat apa jatuh itu pasti ada.
Terus mereka dialihkan atau gimana?
Ini rencana kami akan evakuasi semuanya, 8. Sekalian nanti biar kami bisa pengecekan keseluruhan dari atap.
The afternoon quake hit offshore, about 45 kilometers southwest of Malang City in East Java, damaging hundreds of homes as well as schools, government offices, and mosques across the region. The quake struck at a relatively deep 82 kilometers, or shallower quakes tend to do more damage than deep ones. Authorities said several communities had been evacuated. The deadly earthquake comes as the Southeast Asian nation reels from a cyclone that killed more than 200 people in the eastern part of the archipelago and neighboring East Timor this week. Indonesia experiences frequent quakes and volcanic eruptions due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic activity where tectonic plates collide that stretches from Japan through Southeast Asia and across the Pacific Basin.
Faced with daily internet shutdowns and information suppression by the junta, young activists in coup-hit Myanmar are fighting back with a revolutionary printed newsletter called Molotov, which they secretly distribute across communities. That's the second.
အခုဆိုကျွန်တော်အင်တာဗျူးတော့ကျွန်တော် map တက်ပြီးယူနေရဆိုတာဒါတော်တော်ကြီးကြက်တဲ့ကာလာဖြစ်နေလို့ဒါဆိုတော့ဟာကိုပြလို့ရတယ်နောက်တစ်ခုကဒီ internet ဖြတ်တောက်မှုကြောင့်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီလို printed version စတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ကိုယ်တိုင်ထုတ်ဖြန့်ချီနေရတယ်ဆိုတာသူတို့ feeling ကိုဘယ်လောက်ကြီးကြီးလာတယ်ဆိုတော့ပြတယ်အဲ့တော့ဒီလို printed version နဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့လှုံ့ဆော်တဲ့စာတွေကိုရေးမယ်ထုတ်ဝေမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်သူတို့ထောင်နေနှစ်နဲ့ချီပြီးတော့10နှစ်အထက်မှာတော့ချလို့ရတယ်ဆိုတော့ဟာလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ try ရှိပါဝေမယ်ပေါ့နော်ကျွန်တော် IPDF အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ download version လေးကျွန်တော်တင်လိုက်တဲ့အချိန်မှာလူ9000ကျော် download လုပ်တယ်ပြီးတော့မျိုးအနေနဲ့ကလူငယ်တွေကသူတို့ဘာသူတို့copy ရနေသူတို့ဘာသူတို့ထုတ်ပြီးသူတို့ဘာသူဝယ်ကြတယ်ကျွန်တော်ကရန်ကုန်နဲ့မန္တလေးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်မန္တလေးမှာလည်း3000လောက်ဝယ်ပြစ်တယ်ကြားတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီရန်ကုန်ဘက်မှာကျတော့9000ကျော်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဆန့်တက်တယ်
Police and soldiers have arrested more than 3,000 people since the coup, according to local monitoring group Assistance Association for Political Prisoners. 200 high-profile celebrities, including actors, singers, and social media influencers, are on an arrest warrant list and could face 3 years jail if convicted of spreading dissent against the military. He said the publication had a reach of more than 30,000 people on Facebook so far, and the main audience was Generation Z activists. Copies of the newsletter are also being distributed under the radar at produced markets. Myanmar lived under military rule for 49 years before it transitioned to democracy in 2011. The country has a long history of underground publications attempting to circumvent junta suppression.
Meanwhile, Myanmar junta spokesman Zhao Min-tun compared the ongoing nationwide strike in protest over the army's coup to genocide. Let's take a look. The comments made during the military press conference come as at least more than 600 civilians have been killed in the crackdown and nearly 3,000 arrested, according to a local monitoring group. A Southeast Asian summit on the crisis in Myanmar will take place on April 20, according to France on Friday, with diplomats expecting the talks to take place in Jakarta. Natalie Broadhurst, France's deputy ambassador to the United Nations, told the Security Council meeting that they look forward to hearing the conclusions from the emergency summit that was announced for April 20. Myanmar has been in turmoil since the military ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi in February, with protesters refusing to submit to the junta and demanding a return to democracy. After over 2 months of military rule, efforts to verify deaths and confirm news of crackdowns have been curtailed by the junta's throttling of mobile data with the country. Now, within the country, shunting most of the population into an information blackout.
Staying in Myanmar, images and interviews filmed between March 28 and April 6 show anti-junta protesters in Myanmar living inside a Karen National Union or Karen National Liberation Army camp based in the eastern border state of Kayin. The protesters, former civil servants, say they fled to the ethnic armed group's territory due to a military crackdown that has left at least 640 civilians dead and nearly 3,000 arrested since the coup on February 1. Let's listen in. The mounting bloodshed has also angered some of Myanmar's 20 or so armed ethnic groups who control swaths of territory mostly in border regions. Unrest erupted Saturday in northern Shan State as Tang National Liberation Army, an ethnic rebel group, mounted a pre-dawn attack on a police station, said TNLA's Brigadier General Tar Bon Kiao, who declined to say more. Local media reported more than a dozen police officers were killed, while TNLA said the military retaliated with airstrikes on their troops, killing at least one rebel soldier. State-run television reported in the evening that terrorist armed groups attacked the police station with heavy weaponry and set it on fire. The attack comes the same day TNLA's ally, the Arakan Army, also a prominent rebel group based in western Rakhine State, issued a statement reiterating their support for the anti-coup movement.
To other news now, the Philippine Armed Forces will hold joint forces with hundreds of U.S. soldiers over the next 2 weeks. Its military chief said amid growing tensions with Beijing in the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. The annual war games between the military allies were canceled in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, this year's event will be on a smaller scale than in previous years due to the health crisis, according to Philippine Military Chief Lieutenant General Cirilito Sobejana. Sobejana said about 700 U.S. soldiers and up to 1,300 members of the Philippine military will take part, about a quarter of the usual attendance. He said the exercise this year is a hybrid of virtual and physical activities and that it's a low-key exercise just to keep the alliance, the contact between the armed forces. Now, the announcement came hours after a phone call between U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Philippine counterpart, Delfin Lorenzana, who last week tested positive for the coronavirus. They discussed the situation in the South China Sea and the recent massing of People's Republic of China maritime militia vessels at Whitsun Reef, according to a readout provided by the Pentagon. To deepen their defense cooperation, Austin proposed enhancing situational awareness of threats in the South China Sea. Tensions over the resource-rich sea have intensified since hundreds of Chinese vessels were detected last month at Whitsun Reef, which is in the Spratly Islands, where several countries, including China and the Philippines, have rival claims.
China's foreign minister also says it is in friendly cooperation with the Philippines after the presence of Chinese vessels at a disputed reef off the Philippines intensified a diplomatic spat over the ships. This is in it.
中国和菲律宾是友好近邻，两国友好合作远远大于海上分歧。中方一贯并将继续致力于同菲律宾通过友好协商妥处分歧，推进合作，增进互信，维护双边关系大局和海上和平稳定。当前南海局势总体稳定，中方同菲方就有关问题保持密切沟通。我们注意到，菲律宾总统杜特尔特日前表示，菲方将继续通过外交渠道和平解决有关问题。中方敦促美方尊重地区国家间妥处分歧、维护南海局势稳定的努力，停止搬弄是非、挑拨离间。
Philippine Defense Department spokesman Arsenio Andolong said Thursday it was keeping all our options open as a diplomatic row with Beijing grows over hundreds of Chinese vessels in the contested South China Sea. While President Rodrigo Duterte has appeared reluctant to confront China on the issue, one of his top aides warned Monday the boats could ignite unwanted hostilities. Many of the boats detected at Whitsun Reef on March 7 have since scattered across the Spratly archipelago. which is also claimed in whole or in part by Brunei, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Vietnam.
Acting Foreign Affairs Undersecretary for Bilateral Relations, Elizabeth Buen-Suceso, underscored the Philippines' commitment towards progress in the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, negotiations between ASEAN member states and China. Now she is also ASEAN Affairs and Philippine ASEAN or SOM senior officials meeting leader, and she urged all parties to adhere to the rule of law and exercise self-restraint during the ASEAN held via video conference on April 7. The Philippines is the current country coordinator for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations China Dialogue Relations. Buen-Suceso said in a news release on Saturday that the continued deployment and lingering presence of a large swarm of maritime militia vessels within the Philippines' maritime zones remains a serious concern, and she reiterated that a conducive environment is crucial for the COC negotiations. She also called on ASEAN to raise its collective voice to push for equitable access to vaccines, especially in consideration of developing countries. She stressed that the procurement of vaccines under the COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund, or CARF, is highly commendable under the current circumstances given its urgency.
A prominent Singapore minister stepped aside on Thursday as the successor to the premier in a shock move that upended the tightly controlled country's carefully planned power transfer. Finance Minister Heng Swee Keat was in 2018 named to a key post in the ruling party that put him in pole position to take over when Singapore's founding family hands over the premiership. He was expected to replace Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, son of the late founding Premier Lee Kuan Yew, who oversaw the country's rapid economic development during 3 decades of sometimes authoritarian rule. That's the Senate.
Well, good afternoon. More than 2 years ago, the 4G leadership chose me to lead the team. We have bonded as a team and have worked well together since. COVID-19 struck last year. The pandemic is still raging worldwide, and many expect this to be a prolonged crisis. The virus has also accelerated significant structural shifts, such as strategic competition between major powers, discontent with globalization, and the digital revolution. I thank PM for his commitment to stay on until the crisis is over, so that he hands over a Singapore that is in good working order to the next leader. The next Prime Minister should have a sufficiently long runway to master the demands of leading our nation, formulate and see through our longer-term strategies, and win the confidence and support of Singaporeans to build this shared future together. This year, I'm 60. I will be close to the mid-60s when the crisis is over. Now, when I also consider the ages at which our first 3 prime ministers have taken on the job, I would have too short a runway should I become the next prime minister then. Because of the COVID, that has been disrupted, and by the time I'll be close to my mid-60s. And with each passing year, I think it will be different, because I think for most jobs, and I think the 60s can be a very productive time of life for most of us. But I think the top job imposes exceptional demands on the office holder. And having thought about it very carefully, having discussed with my family, I thought it is better that I step aside, have someone younger with a longer runway who can re-examine many of the issues that we have been looking at.
ASEAN's infrastructure investment needs will total US $2.8 trillion or US 1.84.
The power transfer is highly sensitive as the country of 5.7 million's transformation into one of the world's wealthiest and most stable societies is linked in many people's minds to the Lee family's rule. Heng was charismatic, and following his designation as Singapore's leader-in-waiting, the long-ruling People's Action Party saw its support fall in polls last year, while the opposition made unprecedented gains. Meanwhile, the premier started signaling he would stay on longer to see the city-state through the coronavirus pandemic.
In the possibility of trade disputes deteriorating, but at the same time,
may pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Mga dekorasyon sa bahay, sa mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
President Duterte has placed NCR Plus, Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal under the less restrictive Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ from April 12 till the end of the month. Let's take a look.
Inaprubahan po ngayong araw ng ating Presidente ang rekomendasyon ng inyong IATF na ilagay ang mga lugar na ito sa corresponding na community quarantine. Under Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, ang Metro Manila kasama po ang Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna at Cavite. Under MECQ din po ang City of Santiago, Quirino at ang Abra. So ulitin ko po, under MECQ ang NCR plus Bulacan, Rizal, Bulacan at Cavite, ang City of Santiago, Quirino at Abra. Mapapasailalim naman po sa General Community Quarantine ang CAR. Sa Region 2, ang Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya. Sa Region 4A, ang probinsya ng Batangas. Sa Region 8, Tacloban City. Sa Region 10, Iligan City. Sa Region 11, ang Davao City. Sa BARM, Lanao del Sur. At ang Quezon mula April 12 to 30. Ang lahat po ng parte ng Pilipinas na hindi nabanggit ay mapapasailalim po sa MGCQ.
Philippine National Police Chief General Debold Sinas on Sunday ordered the cops to continue to man checkpoints in the NCR Plus, Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, and 3 other areas under the less restrictive Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine starting today until April 30. According to PNP spokesman Brigadier General Ildebrandi Usana, Sinas convened a meeting Sunday morning prior to the announcement of the downgrading of these areas to MECQ from enhanced community quarantine effective today. According to him, a curfew will remain in place and compliance with the minimum public health standards will continue to be enforced. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said President Duterte decided to downgrade the restriction after more public and private hospitals committed to provide rooms and beds dedicated to COVID-19 patients. Besides NCR+, also under MECQ are the city of Santiago in Isabela, Quirino Province in Region 2, and Abra in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Cagayan, Isabela, and Nueva Vizcaya or Region 2 or Cagayan Valley. Quezon and Batangas, or Region 4A or Calabarzon, Tacloban City, Region 8 or Eastern Visayas, Ligan City, Region 10 or Northern Mindanao, Davao City, Region 11 or Davao Region, and Lanao del Sur, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, will be under general community quarantine. The rest of the Philippines will be under the least restrictive modified general community quarantine, or MGCQ.
Hospitals in the Philippine capital Manila are struggling to handle the growing number of coronavirus cases, with many facilities reaching its capacity limit and patients being turned away. Take a look.
It was just heartbreaking because even if we went to all these hospitals that said, again, had all these writings on them, and that, people were telling us that they couldn't accommodate them, there were still people there. There were still people just begging to go inside or to be admitted, to be cared for. And, eventually we became one of those people as well. We didn't anticipate that it was this bad. And the more hospitals we called and went to, the more the panic settled in, the more the feeling of helplessness settled in. Me and my family, we've moved on or are trying to move on, so we don't really entertain these thoughts anymore. But, maybe if we had a clear plan of action, maybe if we knew that hospitals were a bust, that, we could have just relied on ourselves more rather than spend all that time, 5 hours, looking for a hospital to no avail, really.
Last week, ang worst scenario ko, no? Ang worst scenario ko, ang sabi ko nga kanina, 400 beds ang ward, 100 beds yung ICU, no? What happened was, nanghiram ako ng bed sa ICU na 50 beds. So, anong nangyari? 450 beds sa ward. Full yun. And then, 50 beds na lang sa ICU. Yun ang...
In Dr. Jose Rodriguez Memorial Hospital, all non-COVID operations are suspended to focus on treating moderate to severe COVID cases. About 370 out of 400 beds in COVID wards are currently occupied, which was at full capacity last week. In a video taken by a nurse inside this hospital through AFP request, nurses were seen in protective gear catering to patients. Some of them are in critical condition. Modular tents are set up and additional healthcare workers are deployed in major hospitals to augment the health facilities in Manila, which was put under lockdown to stem the contagion. Leland Ustare, an anesthesiologist at St. Luke's Medical Center, said that some patients were spending days in the emergency room waiting for an intensive care bed. Jaime Almora, president of the Philippine Hospital Association, said the problem in hospitals was a lack of health workers and not beds. Some nurses have resigned out of fear of catching the virus or gone abroad to work in hospitals where the risks were the same but the pay higher.
Staying in Philippines, the country's national vaccination program is certain to keep going after 500,000 more doses of Sinovac vaccines arrived on Sunday afternoon from Beijing. Officials led by National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. witnessed the arrival at Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 2 via a Philippine Airlines commercial flight.
It's very important because we are racing against time. Our cases are rising, and we wanted also to inoculate our people immediately.
Galvez praised the drug maker Sinovac for the continuous delivery of COVID-19 vaccines. The Philippines initially received 1 million doses of the procured supplies on March 29. A total of 1.5 million doses will arrive on April 22 and 29, and another 2 million in May. The vaccines were transported and stored at the Metropac cold storage facility in Marikina City. Galvez said majority of the vaccines will be sent to Visayas and Mindanao.
President Duterte on Friday night took time to jog and hop onto his bike within the Malacanang compound in Manila amid speculations that he is sick. Photos of him jogging and riding a big bike were uploaded on the Facebook account of his former longtime aide, Senator Christopher Bongo. Duterte was seen wearing a face mask and face shield. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque explained on Friday that President Duterte decided to limit his public exposure due to the spike in COVID cases in the country. The president is staying at Malacanang Palace in Manila.
The country's COVID-19 response managers gave the use of automatic contact tracing through smart messaging system a go signal to further strengthen and improve the use of StaySafe.ph system, Malacanang said Sunday. The StaySafe.ph system is the official social distancing COVID-19 health condition reporting and contact tracing system of the government.
April 12 to 13. Inaprubahan din po ng inyong IATF ang rekomendasyon ng National Economic and Development Authority na gamitin ang automatic contact tracing sa pamamagitan ng smart messaging system. Mapapalakas at ma-improve nito ang paggamit ng StaySafe.ph para matiyak ang interoperability at integration ng lahat ng contact tracing applications integration ng StaySafe.ph. Magkakaroon ng initial beta testing kasama ang proposed messaging ng Smart Messaging System sa Pasig City sa 1 ng Mayo 2021 at beta testing sa consortium ng Antipolo at mga lungsod ng Pasig, Mandaluyong, Valenzuela sa 1 rin ng Mayo 2021 with access to COVID-19 Document Repository System or CDRS. Inadapt din ng IATF ang rekomendasyon para sa immediate completion ng paglilipat ng pagmamay-ari or transfer of ownership sa Department of Health ng CDRS at immediate integration ng CDRS sa StaySafe.ph system at iba pang local contact tracing systems at applications. Ang Department of Interior and Local Government ang inatasan na maging overall lead sa implementasyon. Samantalang ang Department of Information and Communication Technology ang mangunguna sa National Interoperability at ang DOH ay inatasan at yakin ang integration ng StaySafe.ph sa CDRS. Ang DILG ang tinalaga ng bumuo na action plan na may specific timelines and targets kasama ang DICT at DOH. Kasama rin sa naratipikahan kahapon sa IATF
In November last year, the IATF-EID signed a resolution making the use of StaySafe.ph mandatory in all national government agencies and instrumentalities and local government units or LGUs. The IATF-EID in January this year issued another resolution directing DILG to ensure LGUs proper enforcement StaySafe.ph to step up the efforts to trace close contacts of individuals who are found to be positive for COVID-19. Despite this, lawmakers said there was no unified national contact tracing system in use after various contact tracing applications had emerged.
Almost 40 Thai provinces have brought in entry restrictions and quarantine requirements for people traveling from Bangkok and other coronavirus hotspots ahead of a holiday travel period as the capital grapples with soaring infections. On Sunday, the government announced 967 new infections, bringing the overall tally to more than 32,000. Separately, health officials in the northern city of Chiang Mai flagged a further 281 cases that were likely to be included in Monday's national figures. Bangkok appears to be the epicenter of Thailand's third wave, with more than 1,000 cases reported this month. More than 4,000 people are in hospital with coronavirus across the country. Thai authorities have detected a highly infectious variant of the virus originally found in Britain. Festivities for the rowdy Songkran holiday marking the Thai New Year, known for its public water fights, have been curtailed, with officials canceling Bangkok street celebrations to discourage crowds. Thousands of Thais traditionally return to their home provinces during the Songkran holiday period, which officially starts Tuesday. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha encouraged people to stay home during the holidays.
Staying in Thailand, Bangkok sets up 10 field hospitals to accommodate up to 3,000 people as Thailand struggles with a new wave of COVID-19 and the emergence of the UK variant. Dr. Suksan Kittisupokorn, Director General of Medical Service Department, says this is the most severe outbreak Thailand has experienced so far. That's it.
ก็ถือว่าสถานการณ์ตอนนี้ก็ถือว่าหนักที่สุดตั้งแต่มีการระบาดนะครับแต่ก็ยังไงก็ตามเนี่ยที่ผ่านมาได้ทำให้เราเรียนรู้มาเรื่อยๆทำให้เราพัฒนาการรักษาพัฒนาการเตรียมตัวจนอยู่ในระยะที่เราพร้อมในการรองรับมือนะครับ
Bangkok's governor visited a building converted into an isolation facility as new rules require every person testing positive to be isolated in a hospital facility. Authorities announced the arrival of 1 million doses of Sinovac vaccines as the country lags behind in its inoculation drive. As of Saturday, for the most recent phase of the outbreak, the Bangkok Post reported that Bangkok had recorded an accumulated number of 1,114 infections. Of that number, 823 were linked to night entertainment venues in the capital, and the rest detected during proactive mass testing in communities. Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, or CCSA, reported 967 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday, the most ever diagnosed in 24 hours in the kingdom. A senior health minister warned that more than 28,000 people could be infected by COVID-19 per day over the next month if no disease control measures are put in place during the current spike. Meanwhile, in Cambodia, Cambodia's strongman Premier Hun Sen threatened quarantine breakers with jail time Saturday and warned civil servants they could lose their jobs if they go unvaccinated as the country grapples with a growing coronavirus caseload. In the past 2 days, Cambodia has registered more than 1,000 infections, many among garment workers and market vendors, bringing the country's tally to 4,081 cases and 26 deaths. Authorities this week banned travel between provinces, imposed a nighttime curfew in the capital Phnom Penh, and shut down popular tourism sites, including the famed Angkor Wat Archaeological Park. Wearing face masks is now mandatory in Phnom Penh, and violators face a fine of up to $250. But Prime Minister Hun Sen on Saturday threatened harsher measures, saying anyone who flouts a 2-week quarantine period would face a quick trial and jail time. On a televised address, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "I accept being called a dictator, but I will also be admired for protecting my people's lives," and quote. Cambodia has already passed a strict COVID-19 prevention bill that could see people who flout virus rules jailed for up to 20 years. Hun Sen also announced that being vaccinated was mandatory for all state officials and the armed forces, warning them they could be fired if they refuse.
Cambodian authorities transformed wedding party halls into COVID-19 hospitals to treat patients with mild symptoms as the country grapples with a growing coronavirus caseload with hospitals running out of beds. Cambodia on Sunday registered 3 more deaths from coronavirus and 157 new infections, many among garment workers and market vendors, bringing the country's tally to 4,238 cases and 29 deaths. Authorities this week banned travel between provinces, imposed a nighttime curfew in the capital Phnom Penh, and shut down popular tourism sites, including the famed Angkor Wat Archaeological Park. Wearing face masks is now mandatory in Phnom Penh, and violators face a fine of up to $250. According to Khmer Times, as of April 11, Cambodia has vaccinated 1 million armed forces, civil servants, and civilians nationwide, according to their press release. The royal government of Cambodia is prepared to secure 20 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to inoculate up to 10 million Cambodian people free of charge. As of March 31, China has provided 2.8 million vaccines to the kingdom, including 1.3 million in donation and 1.5 million through commercial procurement. ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Stay tuned.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back. The first Indonesian Moto Gp has been pushed back 1 year. It will not take place before March 2022. That is according to the championship promoters. Dorna announced this on Friday. MotoGP signed a 3-year deal to host a race in Indonesia in 2019 with the inaugural event at the purpose-built street track on the island of Lombok, which is still currently under construction, initially due to be held this year. Due to the ongoing pandemic, all parties involved agreed to hold the first MotoGP World Championship Grand Prix at the track in the first part of 2022. That season, in principle during March, according to Dorna in a press statement. MotoGP organizers visited the site on Wednesday to check progress on the circuit. The new track, the layout of which will be used in part by the inhabitants of the island when there are no organized events, could yet host a test event at the end of the year if MotoGP is able to hold events in Southeast Asia towards the end of 2021. The owners of the circuit are hoping to hold a Superbike World Championship championship event on November 14 at this tourist resort, made up of beaches and other large hotels, which was badly shaken by an earthquake in 2018. Indonesia is hoping to follow the path taken by Malaysia and Thailand, which arrived on the Moto Gp World Circuit in 2018, in creating a strong home market in motorsport.
And finally, in our news for today, 600 Vietnamese traditional Ao Dai dresses with designs inspired by cultures from around the world are showcased at a fashion show in Hanoi's centuries-old Temple of Literature.
Điều này chúng tôi mong muốn rằng là áo dài sẽ được lan tỏa rộng hơn, mạnh hơn, vượt ra khỏi biên giới của Việt Nam và được tất cả mọi người trên thế giới đón nhận một cách ưu ái nhất.
Và khi mà chúng tôi lên những ý tưởng này và lựa chọn những cái hoa văn, những cái họa tiết, những cái chủ đề quốc gia đó vào áo dài thì cũng phải rất là chọn lọc và phải rất là lựa chọn, bởi vì là làm thế nào để cân bằng giữa cái vẻ đẹp của cái nền văn hóa quốc gia đó ở trên cái tà áo dài của mình, làm thế nào để mọi người cảm thấy rằng là rất là dễ chịu khi mà cái tà áo dài mang một cái thông điệp truyền tải những cái ý nghĩa văn hóa của các quốc gia, nhưng mà không hề mất đi cái vẻ đẹp truyền thống của tà áo dài.
Around, I saw many different áo dài inspired by many different countries. So it's very versatile. Áo dài can be really designed and combined with other culture, and I'm sure that after this event, the áo dài is gonna spread around the world.
The show, entitled The World in Vietnamese Ao Dai, brought together 15 designers from across Vietnam to present Ao Dai costumes made from silk and delicate grainy fabric. The collections presented during the show were created with inspiration from 15 countries and feature unique designs, including tulip flowers from the Netherlands, ancient Greek buildings, and Francis Eiffel Tower. One challenge in the show was to balance the beauty of a foreign country's culture on the Ao Dai, says designer Dang Ngọc Khan, whose collection features patterns from India. Organizers say they hope that through the event, the Ao Dai costume will be a bridge to bring Vietnamese culture closer to the world.
They're gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind having one. Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you very much for keeping me company today. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday indeed, Alma, and please take care. And that's the latest news around the dynamic ASEAN region. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I am Crystal Mapo from BBC Thailand Bureau. We live in interesting.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.